Hare Krishna, dear devotees, welcome back again to our ongoing series on the glories of the 12 forests of Sri Vrindavan Dham. Happy to be with you. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pashtaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nivishesha Shunyavari Paschata Deshatarne. Glories to Srila Prabhupada. So you can see we're not in our usual studio. I'm still in Delhi, and our congregation member has again very kindly given us his recording studio to do our lecture today. We're grateful to him and hope it looks okay. So we're continuing with our mini-series on Yavat, sometimes pronounced Javat. As you may know, the other day I had the extreme good fortune to actually visit Yavat in Sri Vrindavan Dham, where I took a number of photos and posted an album on Facebook. And you can just imagine how excited I was to actually visit Yavat after doing so much research about it and giving a few lectures. And during that visit, I was remembering the words of Srila Narottam Das Thakur from his Prarthana, Song 29, where he's just hankering to be in Vrindavan and appreciating that Dham so much. So this song was going through my mind. He writes as follows: O Lord Hari, when will I reside in Vrindavan and behold the beauty of the divine couple, Radha and Krishna? When will I give up the happiness of sleeping on a luxurious bed? And when will I smear my body with the dust of Braj? When will I give up enjoying the 6 palatable foodstuffs? And when will I beg madhukari like a bee in Braj to maintain my body? When will I wander through forest to forest doing parikrama? And when I am tired, will I take rest on the banks of the Jamuna? I will cool myself down beneath the shade of Vamsivat and sit in a kunj with other Vaishnavas. Narottam Das Thakur says, when will that day come that I actually give up everything and go to Vrindavan? So let us all prepare ourselves for our big parikrama at Yavat in the future by hearing more katha of the wonderful pastimes that take place there eternally. So one day, Krishna had managed to sneak into the Yavat palace and was meeting Srimati Radharani in her rooms, when suddenly, who should walk in but Jatila, Radharani's mother-in-law. And at that moment, it's described, Krishna had to literally dive out the window, leaving his flute behind. But fortunately, Jatila, as we mentioned before, is half blind and didn't exactly see him jumping out the window. She couldn't really make out what was happening. But as always, she suspected Krishna. So she said to Srimati Radharani, was that the rascal Krishna? It was, wasn't it? Of course, Radharani denied it. Unfortunately, however, Jatila saw Krishna's flute lying just before her on the table. And so she immediately concluded Krishna had been there. So she yelled, that was Krishna. I knew it. This is his flute. At last I've caught you red-handed with that rascal, Sri Radha. So at that point, Srimati Radharani didn't know what to say. But bold Lalita, she stepped forward and said, Jatila, that's not Krishna's flute. Don't be ridiculous. So Jatila was stunned. And she thought, how could Lalita deny that Krishna has been here when his flute is here? It's clear evidence. He was here. So Jatila said, well, Lalita, how did this flute get here then? You girls don't play flutes. Only Krishna does. How can you deny the obvious? But Lalita was not even slightly discouraged by those words, so she folded her arms, she stood up straight, and with complete conviction, she said, Jatila, don't you know, today it's raining flutes. So Jatila said, raining flutes? That's completely crazy. How dare you say such nonsense? But without hesitating even for a second, Lalita said, Jatila, look out the window. So it's described, Jatila went to the window mumbling something about rascal girls lying and talking nonsense. But sure enough, when she looked outside, it was raining flutes. It was raining flutes. Shri Brajabhumi Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. So let us have faith that all this is true. This is absolute truth. And pray that one day we can, by Srila Prabhupada's mercy, enter into such sublime pastimes. That must be our mood. We have to have that hankering and that faith. Narottam Das Thakur also writes in Parthana, Song 17, in that same mood. Quote, I have heard from the mouths of pure devotees that by the mercy of Srila Rupa Goswami, one can attain the lotus feet of Sri Radha and Krishna. O my Lord Sanatana Goswami and the associates of Lord Gauranga, all of you kindly fulfill these desires. Let the mercy of Srila Rupa Goswami be upon me, for whoever has taken shelter of him is my master. When will Lokanath Goswami, my spiritual master, take me with him and place me at the lotus feet of Sri Rupa? When will it ever happen to me that the dearmost Sakis will chastise their servant, Narottam Das? Hare Krishna. Sri Narottam Das Thakur Ki. May we imbibe that hankering in that faith. So, some more nectar from Yavat. The following nectarian pastime is described by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his book called Shri Prema Samput. Shri Prema Samput. He describes how one time Krishna felt like testing Srimati Radharani. Testing her not in the sense of trying to defeat her, but to see deeper into her heart, to see her extraordinary, unique love that she has for him. He just wanted to test her to, see that. So early one morning, he did a very remarkable thing. He disguised himself as a demigoddess, with a crimson-colored veil over his head. Krishna is the master of everything, so we can be assured that he's the master of disguise. So he disguised himself as a demigoddess, and he entered into the courtyard of Yavat, and then into the palace and into Sri Radha's quarters, into her rooms. So when Srimati Radharani saw this charming young woman a little distance away, she addressed her friend Lalita. She said, "O Saki Lalita, look, just look, who is this beautiful young woman, adorned with astonishing ornaments?" I liked that, astonishing ornaments. She continued, "Her radiance illuminates our whole courtyard. The whole palace appears to be decorated with blue sapphires." She had some special attraction for this demigoddess. So Lalita approached the demigoddess and asked, "Dear one, who are you? where have you come from? And is there any special reason you have come here? But the young girl didn't reply, very shy. So Lalita asked the same questions again. But again, the young girl didn't reply. So Radharani was feeling some special attraction to this demigoddess. So she herself spoke up. She said to the demigoddess, "O beautiful one, who are you? It seems that you have appeared before us," quote, Vishwanath writes, embodying the beauty of the entire world. But still, the pretty girl didn't reply. So Radharani continued, "Shy one, please introduce yourself. There's no reason to be timid or reserved with us." Then she said something really amazing. "Please understand that I consider you to be my most intimate friend." Yes, indeed. "Please understand that I consider you to be my most intimate friend." Then she said to the demigoddess, "Has your beloved perhaps abandoned you? Or did you find some fault in his character and therefore you left him? Is that why you can't speak?" "Actually, I think I know what happened," Sri Radha said. "It must be that you were married and you have family members like I do. Maybe you have someone like Jatila or Kutila. Perhaps they always surround you like Jatila and Kutila do here, and they're always defaming me, proclaiming my faults to everyone. Did this happen to you? Do you have some family members like that?" No reply. "Or is it that perhaps you have some sickness or some disease, and that is why you are carefully covering every single part of your body?" The disguise. So when Krishna, in this disguise, heard Sri Radha speak in that way, underneath that crimson red veil, a gentle smile appeared upon his face. And he said in a feminine voice, "O supremely beautiful Radha, I'm actually from Svargaloka. I'm a demigoddess. And I've come here because I have a certain doubt." So everyone, "Oh, wow." So the demigoddess said, "Some time ago, a flute sound penetrated into our higher planetary system. And it had a very powerful effect on everyone living there. I saw with my own eyes. Hearing that flute sound, some people started crying uncontrollably, tears flowing from their eyes like torrents of rain. Some people fainted. I saw others, their hair stood on end. So I decided to find out where this flute sound was coming from. Thus I followed it down here to the earth planet. And I wandered and came to Vrindavan. And I discovered it was coming from Vamsivat, from a very handsome young boy playing a flute under a banyan tree. And after closely observing for some time, I noticed that although he professes a unique love for you, in fact, he appears to love many young girls. I have watched his activities. He professes a special love for you, but Sri Radha, he appears to love many, many young girls. So my advice is that due to that infidelity to you, you should leave him immediately. He professes to love you most, but he's with all these other girls. I advise you, leave him immediately." Now remember that Krishna has taken this disguise and is speaking like this to test Sri Radha's love for him. So Srimati Radharani immediately jumped to Krishna's defense, you could say. And she said, "No, I will never leave him. No matter how he treats me, I will never leave him." Then she said, actually it's everyone's desire to serve him and love him, but our relationship is unique. It's everyone's desire to serve him and love him, which is true, but our relationship is unique, so I will not leave him. She said, my friends have noticed without envy that I am Aradhana, she who pleases him the most. So they happily engage in making arrangements for Maya and Krishna's pastimes together without any envy or jealousy. So the demigoddess, she spoke next. She said, but Sri Radha, how can you be absolutely sure of Sri Krishna's special love for you? So this is really wonderful, this part. So Radha replied, my dear demigoddess, the reason I am sure is we are not two persons. Rather, we are one soul in two bodies. Therefore, I know. One soul in two bodies? Yes, you remember the other day, we explained in detail how Srimati Radharani is actually an expansion of Krishna's pleasure potency, Ladini Shakti. When the Lord wants to enjoy, he expands his pleasure potency. And that becomes Ladini Shakti, personified as Srimati Radharani. So she said, the reason I am sure is we are not two persons, rather we are one soul in two bodies. And I also was reading in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila 456. It's explained, same principle very clearly. Radha Krishna Eka Atma Dui Dehadari Anyonye Vilase Rasa Ashvadana Kari. Quote, Radha and Krishna are one and the same, but they have assumed two bodies. Thus they enjoy each other, tasting the mellows of love. So, in that way we can understand Radharani's statement. It's not a mystery to her. Krishna loves her the most. So then Krishna, as the demigoddess, smiled, and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, with a perfect plan in mind, he said, quote, whether he, meaning Krishna, is far away or close at hand, if your beloved, simply upon your remembering him, were to immediately appear here, present before you, I would become confident with the intimate knowledge of your oneness in love. Whether he is far away or close at hand, if your beloved, simply upon your remembering him, were to immediately appear here, present before you, I would become confident with the intimate knowledge of your oneness in love. It's deep. So then Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur writes, quote, after hearing the demigoddess speak as she did, Sri Radha closed her eyes and fell into a deep trance of meditation on the Lord of her heart. He continues, she appeared like a powerful yogini sitting in a trance of meditation, her senses totally restrained and observing complete silence. So, taking this opportunity, Krishna, Vishwanath writes, mystically, and without anyone noticing, abandoned his dress of the demigoddess and embraced Sri Radha, causing her to experience ecstatic symptoms. So then she opened her eyes. She was surprised. Oh, my most beloved Krishna is here. My meditation has brought him here. So at that moment, Lalita Saki spoke up saying, Krishna, what's going on here? What a surprise to see you all of a sudden here. She said, only chaste ladies are eligible to enter into these inner apartments, Krishna. The wind god himself is incapable of suddenly and unexpectedly entering here. But we must praise your good fortune, since the respectable lady of this house, Jatila, is not at home, Purnamasi's arrangement, nor is that resentful husband, Abhimanyu, here either. The tides of fate are in your favor. I love that part. The tides of fate are in your favor. So people, every one of the gopis are like, how did Krishna get here? Obviously, Radharani's meditation. So Krishna, he said, what fault is there on my part? I was simply playing in the courtyard of my father's Goshala, when by chance I suddenly became overwhelmed with remembrance of Sri Radhika. Immediately thereafter, it was as if though some celestial being brought me here. And as Sri Radha and all the gopis smiled in appreciation, one girl said, "Oh, girls, what has happened to that beautiful demigoddess who was here amongst us? Where is she?" So no one could answer that question. Where she went? How did she disappear? And neither were they concerned, Vishwanath says, as they enjoyed seeing the divine couple together once again, against all odds. Yavat, against all odds. Hare Krishna. Wonderful pastime. Now, the final words of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in Sri Prema Samput are very touching. I knew the pastime was there, so I was reading it and absorbing it, and I actually spent a long time reading the book. But then I went to the end and I saw that how he concludes so beautiful. He writes, quote, "In the year 1606, Sakabda, which is Christian era 1703, during the month of Falguna, February, March, this poem, Sri Prema Samput, became manifest to a certain soul while he was residing on the banks of Sri Radhakund and Shamakund, drinking and being nourished by the sweet nectar of Sri Rupa Goswami's words." Hare Krishna. So we are all forever indebted to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur for the many insights he has given us through his work, through his writings, into Radha and Krishna's loving pastimes in Vrindavan. He knew Braj. I was reading that he himself lived in various places throughout Vrindavan, like Radhakund, Yavat, Govardhan, etc., as he confirmed in various statements in his books. And then I was reading that, like many preachers of Krishna consciousness, he too would sometimes come up against opposition during his lifetime. In particular, I'm remembering on one occasion, he had a public debate with some scholars who would not accept Krishna's loving relationships with the gopis as the highest eternal expression of divine love. They wouldn't accept that. But by quoting from Vaishnava scriptures, especially Srimad Bhagavatam, he defeated the argument that Krishna was married to the gopis. No, he's not married. It's Padikya Bhava, Rasa. So he was able to establish that Krishna was not married to the gopis, but had a different relationship. They didn't like that. Unfortunately, some of his defeated opponents, after that debate, took a vow to kill him. And one day those evil-minded men, armed with knives, waited for Vishwanath at a place he would regularly pass by on Parikrama. But at the allotted time when he would come by, instead of, they're waiting there, instead of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, who walks by? A very charming young girl picking flowers. So the scholars, they asked her, Lali, did you see Vishwanath come by this path? So she replied, yes, I saw him earlier, but he seems to have disappeared. Now it's written that this girl's sublime radiance acted to distract the men from their mission. So one of them asked, Lali, whose daughter are you anyway, and where do you live? So the Guru replied, I am Sri Radha's maidservant. She is now at her in-laws' house in Yavat. She sent me here to pick flowers for Krishna. Now as soon as this little girl spoke those words, she disappeared. And in her place stood Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Wow. And it's written that the influence of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's personal presence in both his Siddha and Sadhaka form. Siddha means as the young girl, liberated eternal form as a young gopi. And his Sadhaka form means as the elderly Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. The influence of his personal presence in both his Siddha and Sadhaka forms transformed those scholars' hearts. And they fell at his feet and they begged for forgiveness. Hare Krishna. Jai Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur ki. There's the following saying in relation to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's three most famous books. The saying is, Kirana Bindu Kana 18 Niye Vaishnav Pran. Quote, these three books, Ujvala Nilamani Kirana, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu Bindu, and Bhagavatamrita Kana, are taken and used by the Vaishnavas as their very wealth. Isn't that wonderful? Kirana Bindu Kana 18 Niye Vaishnav Prana. These three books, Ujvala Nilamani Kirana, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu Bindu, and Bhagavatamrita Kana, are taken and used by the Vaishnavas as their wealth. This is our wealth, these leelas, and the tattva, the philosophy that we study to properly understand these wonderful leelas. This is our wealth. In this connection, we also hear what's said like that. We also hear the following verse sung everywhere. Vishvasya naha riposho bhakti vartma pradar sanat. Bhakta chakre varti tatvat chakra vart yak yayai bhavat. Vishvasya nata riposho bhakti vartma pradar sanat. Bhakta chakre vati tatvat chakravat yak yayai bhavat. Quote, because he has shown the Vishvavasis, the residents of the material universe, the path of bhakti. He is called Vishwanath. And because he is situated amongst the chakra, circle of devotees, he is called Chakravarti. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur ki jai. Srila Rupa Goswami ki. Srila Prabhupada ki. Wow. It's so nice to speak about Yavat. It was really nice going there to visit. And I hope you enjoyed the photos that we put up on Facebook, as well as these ongoing leelas. I'm going to be in New Delhi for a few more days. So I'll be back probably in this studio with some more nectar on Yavat or Javat. So thank you for joining us today, and keep well, and we'll see you soon. All glories to Sri Prabhupada. Shri Shri Gauranitai ki, Shri Shri Krishna Balaram ki, Shri Shri Radha Shamasundar ki, Vrindavaneshwari Shrimati Radharani ki, Shri Shri Krishna Balaram ki, Shri Shri Gauranitai ki, Shri Mayapur Dhama ki, Gokul Vrindavan Dhama ki, Golok Vrindavan Dhama ki, Haribo. Jai Jai Sri Radhe. Hare Krishna. See you soon.